Okay, another fun project that we started recently. This is for the FJ Cruiser. Um, I guess technically part of the stealth camper build. um, uh, Started planning a trip to the Owyhee Canyonlands, which is eastern Oregon. And as part of doing that planning and figuring out the routes and the camping and how many nights and all that stuff, um, started looking at how many miles we would be away from a garage, not a garage, sorry, a gas station, and because you don't want to get stuck out in the middle of nowhere. And believe me, this is the middle of nowhere. There is no cell service. There is essentially nothing out there. What you bring with you is what you have. And running actually even running depending on the season and the time of year, running into other people is probably going to be, well, I mean, part of why we're doing this is to kind of the adventure part of it, and to get as far away off grid as possible and just see how that is. So part of the reason why we're doing the build in the FJ is to be able to do this stuff. So it started getting me thinking, I'm going to need some auxiliary fuel, and I need a way to carry it. And the solution that I think makes the most sense is to have two 2-gallon RotopaX fuel jugs. And I know exactly what the size of those are. It's well documented. I know what the carrier looks like for those. There is a locking option for that. You can stack them, which is nice. So ideally, I'd have two of these. So that's 4 gallons of extra fuel, which, given my range, is, it's about 50 plus extra miles of being able to get out, which I am definitely going to need, based on the route that we have. So, and my estimated fuel mileage, etc. So, anyway, so I went to the FJ Cruiser forum, posed the question, said, this is something I'm thinking about. Posed the question, who else would be interested in this? Got some interesting feedback. I got a couple names of a couple vendors that are making the kind of thing that I'm looking for. I've taken a look at them. They seem like good products. I have nothing against the products. The products seem good. The thing that I would like to be able to do with this is have the flexibility to have it also carry a high lift jack, which I have no other place on the rig to carry a high lift. And I just think having a high lift jack, for situations like this, in case we get a flat or whatever, some emergency situation, is a good idea. It's good insurance to have. And we're not going to be in sand. We're going to be, it's going to be, it's easily, the terrain that we're going to be driving on is going to lend itself well to be able to be jacked, for jacking using high lift. So not worried about that. I do need to probably do a little bit more research on the FJ in terms of high lift jacking and FJ. Just making sure that I have the lift points, but I think it should be okay. So not only do I want to carry the water, but I want to carry the high lift jack. Now, the high lift jack is probably going to weigh like 25 pounds. If I go with the forge cast combo option from high lift, probably 36 inch. I don't think I need much more than that. The water itself is going to weigh about 6 pounds roughly per gallon. So that's about 24 pounds, just in water. The RotopaX themselves, a few pounds there. Plus the weight of the carrier, which you can see sort of this preliminary design. By the way, it is definitely preliminary. I don't know. We're probably talking about 60 pounds with those jugs full. And my sense is if that the door can handle that additional weight. and especially if I keep most of that weight close to the hinges, it should be okay. Without any kind of connection to the hinge or other reinforcement. I can probably modify the design to connect to the top hinge, although it's a little. I've seen a design for something like this that does that, and it's a little kludgy. Not crazy about it, but I can do it if push comes to shove, and I really need it for structural reinforcement. But I don't think I will. So, but it's an option, and it's out there if I need it. So this is kind of what it is. So right now I'm thinking about it. It's making this actually out of aluminum, 1/8" aluminum. I can't go any thicker than 1/8" 5052 because if I do, I'm going to run the risk of my bends cracking. The thicker that 5052 gets, the higher the likelihood of breakage is. So we're going to keep it at 1/8". It's going to be two pieces that get bolted together. So there's one piece that's actually going to mount where the existing spare tire carrier is mounted, and there's 4 points to this. I haven't measured this exactly, but I think it's roughly 8" spacing, roughly. But of course, I'll measure this exactly, get the spare tire off and measure it. But this is actually going to be offset off of the face of the door with some spacers, polyurethane spacers, just to protect the door and to give a little bit of room. Then the tire mount is going to be remounted to the face of this. There are some bends to the edge for reinforcement, just to strengthen the thing instead of just making it flat to make it stronger. Almost turns it into a tiny little beam. I'm going to be doing some cutouts in this piece of aluminum to reduce weight. I don't need all that material for strength. The second piece, which is the thing that's actually going to carry the RotopaX and the high lift, is going to be perpendicularly mounted to the first piece, and with a flange that comes across here, and it's going to be bolted in 4 places. 1, 2, 3, 4. Not sure whether I'm going to be using 10 millimeter, 8 millimeter, probably 8 millimeter bolts for this. I don't know if I need to go 10. I've actually drawn it with 10, but I think I can go smaller. And then there's going to be 3 welded gussets that are going to provide structural reinforcement for this. So those are pretty beefy gussets. These lines here indicate the connection points for the RotopaX mount. I don't know exactly what the dimensions are. I'm going to buy one. I'm going to index it and figure out exactly where these holes need to go. All right, so that's that part. And by the way, this back thing is my very rough take on the door of the FJ, which is curved. It's a little funky. And I'll show you when I animate this kind of what I'm talking about in terms of how this actually works. So let's go to the next scene. Okay, so now I've added the actual spare tire, and turn off my phone. It's already off. Good. I'm showing this as a 33-inch spare tire. Right now I've got 32s on there. There's just the standard OEM size for tires for the FJ. But I'm going to be upgrading to 285 70 R17s, and those are just under 33 inches. Call it 33 to be, to be safe. Okay, let's go to the next scene. So this is the other side. So part of this piece that gets bolted to the first piece has a little shelf with a welded gusset on the back, and this, just to reinforce it, and this not only provides some additional rigidity to this piece, but it also provides a little shelf and support for the high lift jack. So I'm going to show that next. And by the way, all of this is relative to the tire is actually pitched back slightly. I don't know exactly what it is. I've guesstimated a little bit just to kind of show from drawing perspective, just to kind of show the relationship between the two. It's not super critical. In terms of what that is from a building perspective, because it's just going to mount to the door, and then it just needs to make sure it clears anything on the vehicle itself, including the part of the quarter panel that is not hinged. So anyway, so let's show that high lift jack. So the high lift jack is going to sit on top of that shelf, and it's going to be bolted with eye bolts through the holes in the vertical portion of the jack into this kind of vertical plane, this vertical panel. I'm not sure how I'm going to lock this up, or whether I even will lock it up. I don't know yet. When I'm not camping and I'm just driving around in the FJ, the high lift jack will not be on the vehicle. It's only going to be on the vehicle if I am going off grid or going camping somewhere, and I know I'm going to need this for insurance purposes. So anyway, but that's another thing to kind of think about, is like how to lock this up. So the next piece, so this next scene actually shows the RotopaX on there, anyway, it just kind of sits in front of the high lift jack, and it projects out a little bit, but not too badly. So let's show this actually rotating. So you can see that the whole door hinges. And on the next scene, you'll kind of get a sense of what exactly this means. So let's go to the next scene. So this is actually a 2D view, which is, I always like to look at these designs both in 3D and 2D, because it helps me understand two-dimensionally, like, just how all this stuff is working. And when you look at this, you can actually see, okay, now it's obvious the angle of, the carrier versus the tire, which is close to vertical, call it vertical. But this has to be inclined because it follows the curve and angle of door. So that's just the nature of the FJ. It has a kind of a curved back door. It's actually really nice. So yeah, like I said, not going to really impact the design, but it's interesting to kind of see this. And then I can actually animate this, so you can kind of see what happens there. Go back. But one of the interesting things about how this back door was designed, because I mean, Toyota's, those engineers, they really have it going on, because this is a very complicated door. And I've spent some time looking at it. It's very complicated. There's two hinges, top and bottom. The top hinge is actually outside the vehicle, and it's kind of enclosed in some plastic and stuff, but it's basically outside the vehicle. The bottom hinge is inside the vehicle, and that's a requirement to have basically a straight line between the bottom hinge and the top hinge. Now, I don't know if this is perfectly vertical. I drew it as perfectly vertical. It might be. It might not be. I don't know. My sense is that whatever it is, it's on the same plane as the tire, which I think is vertical. It's close. The problem is I always look at my FJ on a slope, because it's on a driveway that slopes, so it's kind of always hard to kind of get a sense of that. But anyway, so that's really it's a really interesting hinge arrangement. So when the door opens, the bottom corner near the hinge is actually inside the plane of the door that it opens out of, or the opening of the car of the vehicle that it opens out of, the top of it is outside. So it's really kind of interesting. It's you know it's not the easiest thing in the world to draw, but I took a stab at it. I think it's pretty close. But anyway, so yeah, so this is something we're working on. I don't know whether this is going to turn into a product that we're actually going to try and sell. Once I get the prototype done, I get something that actually works, then and get it on my vehicle, then I can take a lot of pictures. I can do some I do some real world testing, make sure it's strong enough, make sure it's not going to break, and then yeah, and then just kind of see and kind of share all that stuff and just see if there's anybody that might possibly be interested in this, because I might try and sell it, but we'll see. And for manufacturing of this, I'm going to use the same vendors that I've been using for my awning brackets and other things, which is basically a two-part process where I go to one shop, get all the metal cut. They've got a laser cutter, and then have all those pieces sent to another shop that actually does all the fabrication work, does all the bending and welding, and then they send it to yet a third shop which does all the powder coat, and then it eventually gets back to me. So it's there's three parties involved in making all this stuff that I do. So yeah, and anyway, so if I was doing 100 of these, it'd be pretty cheap. Since I'm only doing one, it's probably not going to be cheap. But we will see when I get there and I start making this thing. But I do need a carrier. I'm not crazy about all the options that are available on the market. You know, one of them seems like a guy who's working out of his garage. Another guy, I'm not really sure. So you know, it's not terribly different from the kind of stuff I'm doing, which is very kind of low scale, you know, type of work. And some of these guys might be doing all their own fabrication. I suspect they probably are, in order to make this work, as opposed to me. And I'm just doing design, and I rely on my partners for the fabrication side of it. So anyway, hope this is interesting. If you've got any questions, comments, etc., leave them down below. I'll do my best to answer. Thanks.